If there's been a single mystery core to Disney's new DuckTales series, it's been that of Della Duck, Huey, Louie, and Dewey's mother. We've been watching the story of what happened to this character unravel since the very first episode. From her kids investigating and trying to figure out what happened to her, to Scrooge tearfully explaining how she got lost in space. On top of that, in Season 2, we got to see her lost in space, on the moon, rebuilding her ship, doing everything to try to get home to her family. And all of those stories and all of that tension was building to this. The boy's mother has finally made it home, back to Earth after all her trials to reunite with her family. Because of course she did. Nothing can stop Della Duck. After everything Della has been through, her reunion with her family is easily one of the most anticipated things this show has had to offer so far. It's got the emotional weight of the entire series behind it, and you just have to wonder, how do you handle something that important? With a delicate reunion? With a careful emotional scene? DuckTales has a slightly different approach.
Sup, party people? I'm back in the his zone. No, knew it was wrong as soon as I said it.
Della's first words to her family after a decade away may be awkward, but it doesn't actually lessen the emotional impact even a tiny bit. As soon as the episode gets past that awkward joke, it becomes the perfect reunion. Scrooge immediately rushing out to see his long-lost niece, and marveling, as the adventurer he is, over everything that happened to her, catching up in a series of flurried words and quick exasperations, figuring out where she was, how she got there, what happened to her leg. It's a joyous and fun moment, because of course, Uncle Scrooge welcomes her back immediately. But because we know he will, the emotional toll for that isn't very high, just very satisfying. The emotional point of this episode, what it hinges on, isn't about Scrooge. It's about the kids. The moment Della comes in the door, she's overwhelmed by emotions at just seeing her own kids for the first time. It's a moment she's been looking forward to for a decade. But for Huey, Dewey, and Louie, having a mother wasn't something they ever knew they would have. Accepting this woman in their life who just showed up to be their mother is a much harder thing for them to do. Unless, of course, they're Dewey. Actually, each of the kids react to seeing their mother for the first time differently. Dewey jumping into her arms immediately is kind of important, because not only does it show Dewey's character of being excited about that, but it gives us that immediate emotional tender moment of her reuniting with one of the kids, and then uses the other two boys to gently explore the more careful issue here. Della's been an absent mother for their entire lives, and they all want her desperately. They really want a mother, but adjusting to that idea is a little harder. She is, however, their mother, and they do find traits within her to relate to. Huey's is easy to guess.
As Junior Woodchuck Rule 42 states, build things right the first time and they won't need modification.
You really are my mom!
For the first scene with Della coming back, it's really emotionally satisfying, but Louie's reaction is kind of the most realistic.
This has to be a trick, or a curse from Magica, or a parallel universe, or
But even that gets resolved right away. The whole scene is like a rapid-fire series of emotions, to the extent that not even Louie's completely valid reservations that this might be a supernatural trick or a clone or something nefarious because of all their adventures can stand up to the scene itself. It's heartwarming and emotional, and no DuckTales fan can say it better than Webigail Vanderquack.
My heart! It's too full!
It's an intense opening few minutes of the episode, but the show doesn't waste any time getting back into being funny again, and funny while still moving the plot forward and exploring what's going on with Della. In the span of a few minutes, we see her stuffing her face because she hasn't eaten anything but Oxy-Chew in like a decade, learning that Mrs. Beakley is not just Agent 22 anymore, but actually the housekeeper, and finding out that Duckworth is a ghost. As fun as this story is, though, with the kids seeing their mother again and Della learning about the mansion and how things have changed, one of my favorite things about the episode isn't just the story, but how DuckTales tells it. And it tells it by echoing itself. In the very first episode of this DuckTales series, the kids met Scrooge in a very specific way. Seated at that long table in the dining room, getting excited to meet him, in awe of him, and jumping on the table, overwhelming him. And they reuse that exact same scene here, with the same characters, just replacing Scrooge with Della. I love how this story is structured as a series of callbacks to that very first episode, from the kids piling on top of Della and overwhelming her with questions and excitement, to a character finding themselves in the Wing of Secrets, or Scrooge's garage, and accidentally activating an ancient mortal foe. I think that echoed structure and reusing these set pieces helps bring Della into that family and that story as we already know it. It makes it feel like she already belongs because she's revisiting story beats that we've already experienced and we already really know, such as this one right here, hiding behind this giant Aztec coin and making a plan with Scrooge. Dewey did that, or Huey, or one of them. That's from the first episode, and I think it really ties it together in a way that is super satisfying. By the end of the episode, this structure gives the entire family an obstacle to overcome together, something that ultimately helps them bond and come closer together in what is otherwise a sort of awkward and hard to overcome emotional situation. And while that structuring is really one of my favorite parts of the episodes, it doesn't diminish the other bits. There's a lot of fun stuff happening here, like watching Della desperately trying to become a mother all in one night, baking a bunch of different desserts for her kids and really not doing a great job at it. Her overzealous mothering may cause a few issues, but it also helps her set up a few tender moments. I mean, let's be honest, Della's bad at this, and she shouldn't be expected to be good at it because she's never been a mother before, but she's definitely trying, and that's worth something. I love the part where she tells a story to the kids, using their toys and their marbles to foreshadow something that's going to happen later in the episode, but also really show how kind of manic and overzealous she is. It's a lot of fun. The truth is that she might be terrible at this, and the issue addresses that she is, and that as a family, they're gonna need to have time. But along the way, it all works. Somehow, despite her being a character that's new and invented, DuckTales really made us want to miss her. It manufactured this need for her to be in the show and then delivered on it. I think this was a really emotionally satisfying way to introduce the character back into the family, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next. I also think it's really interesting that she's coming back as a pilot, and there's already another pilot in McDuck Enterprises. And this raises all sorts of interesting questions. What's Launchpad's role going to be if Della's back? And does it have something to do with the terror that flaps in the night? As satisfying as this reunion was, there's a long way to go with Della. We still need to see how she integrates into the family, and I'm really looking forward to seeing that, seeing how she gets to know each of the kids better, and how she becomes part of this Duck universe. I'm also really interested to see what's going to happen with her brother. At the end of the last episode, we saw Donald Duck accidentally launch himself into space. And now, he's the one stranded on the moon. But this time, the moon people aren't so friendly. I can't wait to see where this goes. What did you think about the return of Della Duck? And where do you want the story to go in the future? As for me, I'm just excited that they really delivered on the anticipation of this. but I just don't know where it's going to go from here. And that's really exciting for me. We're in all new territory where there's a character that's brand new and really important, and I just don't have a history with her to predict where this is going to go. I'm really looking forward to it, and I can't wait to see where the rest of this season goes. Even if it's probably going to be another couple months before we see what happens next. In the meantime, thanks for watching as we keep up with these episodes. We have a few more before we catch up to the current batch of DuckTales. So stay tuned. I'm going to keep doing these videos as rapid fire as I can. But in the meantime, take it easy, Internet.